It's 7:14 am. You're standing in line at a coffee shop, wearing a plain black hoodie. Nobody looks at you twice. The barista hands you a $4 coffee, calls the wrong name, and moves on to the next customer. And yet, sitting quietly in your investment accounts, private holdings, real estate portfolios, and trusts is over $500 million. $500 million. Enough money to buy mansions, yachts, private islands, sports teams, or never work another day for the rest of your life. But nobody around you knows it. Not your neighbors, not strangers online, maybe not even some of your closest friends. And strangely enough, that secrecy changes everything, because the truly wealthy often don't look wealthy at all. They don't always wear designer logos. They don't post motivational quotes beside rented Lamborghinis. They don't need validation from strangers, because money already gave them the one thing most people are really chasing: freedom. Today, we're diving into what life actually looks like as a silent millionaire. Not the flashy internet version, the real version. The psychology, the habits, the paranoia, the power, the isolation, the freedom, and the strange reality of having enough money to do almost anything while pretending to be completely normal. And trust me, the deeper you go into this world, the stranger it gets. Let's begin. The first thing that changes when you quietly become worth $500 million is your relationship with time. Most people sell time for money. Silent millionaires buy their time back completely. There's no alarm clock forcing them out of bed, no boss texting them at midnight, no panic about rent, groceries, or whether the next paycheck will arrive on time. But here's the interesting part. Many silent millionaires still work, not because they need money, but because humans need purpose. Without purpose, even luxury becomes empty surprisingly fast. So instead of working for survival, they work selectively. Maybe they invest in businesses they genuinely enjoy. Maybe they run companies quietly behind the scenes. Maybe they spend years studying history, psychology, technology, or art simply because they can. When money is no longer controlling your schedule, curiosity becomes the new currency. And honestly, that level of freedom is hard for ordinary people to even imagine. Think about how much of normal life revolves around money stress. Which job to take, which city to live in, whether you can afford healthcare, whether you can afford time off, whether you can afford to fail. Now remove all of that. Suddenly life becomes less about survival and more about optimization. You stop asking, what can I afford? And start asking, what kind of life do I actually want? That question sounds simple, but for many wealthy people, it becomes surprisingly difficult to answer, because once money stops being the main obstacle, your excuses disappear too. And that forces you to confront yourself. A silent millionaire can wake up in a luxury penthouse overlooking Manhattan and still feel lost, because financial freedom doesn't automatically create emotional clarity. That's one of the biggest misconceptions ordinary people have about extreme wealth. People imagine happiness scales infinitely with money, but after a certain point, money mostly amplifies who you already are. If you're disciplined, wealth gives you leverage. If you're insecure, wealth gives you more ways to hide from yourself. If you're intelligent, wealth gives you access to powerful opportunities. If you're reckless, wealth simply lets you make bigger mistakes. And that's why many truly wealthy people become obsessed with privacy, because privacy protects peace. The internet teaches people that rich equals visible, but old money often operates the opposite way. Quiet homes, low-key clothing, minimal social media presence, limited public exposure. The louder someone appears online, the more likely they're trying to prove something. Real silent wealth often looks boring from the outside. Imagine meeting someone at a quiet restaurant. They wear a simple watch, drive a normal SUV, speak calmly. Nothing about them screams billionaire. But behind the scenes, they may own shares in companies you use every single day. Apartment buildings across multiple cities, millions in dividend-producing investments, quietly generating more money every morning before they even wake up. And the reason they stay invisible is simple. Attention attracts problems. Once people know you have money, human behavior changes immediately. Friends behave differently. Family behaves differently. Business opportunities appear from nowhere. People suddenly have emergencies, investment ideas, charity requests, amazing once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. Some people stop seeing you as a person. They start seeing you as access. And silent millionaires understand this deeply. That's why many wealthy individuals intentionally hide their lifestyles. Not because they're ashamed of wealth, but because anonymity is one of the few luxuries money still can't easily buy back once it's lost. And there's another strange reality nobody talks about. Extreme wealth creates social isolation. At first, this sounds ridiculous to ordinary people. How could someone with $500 million feel isolated? But think about it carefully. The higher your wealth climbs, the fewer people genuinely understand your life. Your financial fears become different. Your opportunities become different. Your conversations become different. A normal person worries about bills. A silent millionaire worries about asset protection, taxes, lawsuits, cybersecurity, wealth preservation, inheritance structures, and whether people genuinely like them or simply like proximity to their money. Trust becomes complicated. Imagine dating while secretly worth $500 million. Do you reveal it early? Hide it? Test people? Sign legal agreements? Wonder whether affection is genuine? Even friendships become psychologically complex because wealth changes power dynamics silently. People may become intimidated around you, competitive around you, dependent on you, resentful of you, or unrealistically impressed by you. And often, the wealthiest person in the room becomes the loneliest one there. That's why many silent millionaires build incredibly small circles. A few trusted friends, a few advisors, maybe family. That's it, because protecting peace becomes more valuable than collecting attention. And here's where things get really interesting. Once you have $500 million, your life becomes less about consumption and more about systems. Ordinary people think wealth means buying more things, but the ultra-wealthy often focus more on controlling systems that generate wealth automatically. Businesses, real estate portfolios, private investments, ownership stakes, intellectual property, infrastructure. At that level, money behaves differently. Your investments may generate millions annually without you touching the principal. Entire teams of accountants, lawyers, wealth managers, tax strategists, and advisors work quietly in the background, protecting and growing your assets. And ironically, the richer people become, the less cash they often spend personally, because financially intelligent, wealthy people understand leverage. Instead of selling appreciating assets and triggering taxes, they borrow strategically against investments. They use corporations, trusts, foundations, and legal structures ordinary people barely understand exists. This is why the financial world feels so different at the top. The rules aren't exactly different, but access to information is. A middle-class person might spend years learning how to save money. A silent millionaire spends years learning how to preserve generational wealth. Completely different game. And perhaps the strangest shift of all is this. Once you quietly reach extreme wealth, luxury stops being exciting. The first luxury car feels thrilling. The fifth one feels like storage maintenance. The first business class flight feels unbelievable. After years of private aviation, even luxury normalizes. Humans adapt incredibly fast, which means silent millionaires often stop chasing possessions and start chasing experiences, health, time, relationships, and meaning instead. Because eventually you realize something profound. The true flex isn't owning expensive things. It's controlling your life completely. Being able to disappear for 6 months without financial consequences. Being able to say no to toxic people instantly. Being able to help family members quietly without posting it online. Being able to wake up without fear. That's the kind of freedom most people are actually dreaming about when they fantasize about money. Not the yacht, not the watches, not the supercars, the freedom. And maybe that's why some silent millionaires intentionally avoid flashy lifestyles altogether. Because visible wealth attracts comparison. Invisible wealth attracts peace. There's a reason many of the richest neighborhoods in the world don't look like social media fantasy. The homes are hidden behind trees. The cars are understated. Security is discreet. The people don't need strangers to know they're rich. Confidence becomes quieter at higher levels of wealth. And something else changes too. Risk. A normal person often avoids risk because failure could destroy their survival. A silent millionaire can think in decades instead of months. That changes decision-making dramatically. They can invest patiently, start businesses slowly, wait during market crashes while others panic. Money creates emotional stability when handled correctly, but it also creates temptation, because once you realize you can afford almost anything, discipline becomes even more important. And this is where many wealthy people quietly self-destruct. Addictions, ego, isolation, endless luxury consumption, reckless investing, relationship disasters. Extreme freedom without self-control can become dangerous surprisingly fast. That's why many long-term wealthy individuals become deeply routine-oriented. They exercise consistently, protect sleep obsessively, limit public exposure, build structured schedules, focus on health, because eventually they realize health is the only asset money can't fully guarantee. A billionaire with anxiety still feels anxiety. A millionaire with poor health still suffers physically, and no amount of wealth can buy back lost time. That realization changes priorities for many silent millionaires more than people expect. At a certain point, money stops being about lifestyle upgrades and starts becoming about protecting quality of life itself. And honestly, that may be the biggest hidden truth about extreme wealth. The richest people often spend more energy protecting peace than chasing pleasure, because peace is harder to replace. So if you ever meet someone who seems calm, understated, low profile, and quietly in control of their time, don't assume they're ordinary. Some of the wealthiest people in the world look completely invisible. And maybe that's intentional, because when nobody knows you have $500 million, you get to experience something more valuable than status. You get to experience freedom without performance. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more deep dives into money, psychology, power, and the hidden realities behind wealth. And comment below, if you had $500 million, would you live quietly or publicly?